The reason I rise today is to talk about an incident that actually happened on Monday, which has already had a significant amount of national press. It was mentioned by the Minister in wind-ups yesterday. In the early morning hours of Monday morning, there was an enormous pile of rubbish fly-tipped at the top of Watery Lane leading out of Lichfield. That's a countryside lane. There are around 9 residential properties on it. And when I popped up there, when I heard about it, I popped up to have a look, and it was a genuinely staggering amount of waste that was up there. It was cuboid, it was maybe 20 feet wide, 15 feet high, and probably at least 40 foot long. This was not a few tyres out the back of a transit van. This was industrial scale, enormous fly tip, which meant that the lane was completely unpassable from the north. Unfortunately for residents living on Watery Lane, the southern end of that road has been closed for a housing development for a few months, so there was a time period there where there was no access to the public services. And when we talk about public services, there can be nothing more basic than the fire service, ambulances and police to be able to get to an emergency should it appear. I'd like to really thank Red Row Homes, because they were, as soon as they were made aware, they put a member of their staff up on the top of the lane at the road closure who could keep the service road, the road that runs past it, clear, make sure that we weren't going to have accidents of people crashing because people were trying to get down the road and couldn't. They also opened up their compound and their site so that the emergency services could access those properties should they be needed. In the event they weren't, but that's more by luck than anything else, and I'm very glad that should they have been needed, Red Row were able to step in and do that. The company also offered to help the council clean up when it came, and I think in terms of asking for builders to be considerate to their communities, that's a great example of actually someone, an organisation stepping up. But I think it's very important that we raise this issue in this place. This was a really serious example of industrialised rural crime. This was a very serious setup. It must have been an articulated vehicle of some type because of the sheer size of what was there. Some of the residents have estimated there may be 200 tonnes of rubbish, which has today been cleared by the district council, who've been working very hard to do so. But those 9 households, although there was a way to get in and get out to work, they were actually faced that morning with not being able to go about their business. They couldn't get to school, they couldn't get to work, and obviously the difficulties around that. It also led to a massive issue for the countryside centre, which is just off Watery Lane. Now, there are around 20 businesses based there, including, and I'll declare an interest here, my old man's art studio is up there now. He's not a commercial exercise, but there are a number of businesses which operate out of there: a butcher, a gin distillery, a cafe, bakery, and a host of others, including Cockahoo Creative, who run Lichfield's Foods Festival. Now, all of those businesses lost 2 days of trade because of this rural crime. So I think when we talk about the provision of public services in rural areas, it's not always just about the availability of hospitals, the availability of doctors, the distances from A to B, or the availability of bus services. As important as all those issues are, it's also really important that we see a police service and a response to issues like these that are attuned to the issues of rural areas. Because in that situation, that fly tip was much more serious because of the nature of where it happened. In that instance, and in other instances of these serious fly tips that happen right around the country, I think it's really important that we have the framework that the police and the services need to prosecute these individuals. In the case of what we saw in Lichfield this week, we need to see an investigation. It seems like there may be some clues and there may be some stuff in that tip which may lead to some resolution to an investigation, but that investigation has to end not only with significant fines, but we really do need to start considering custodial sentences for people like this, because of the actions of those individuals. There was a genuine risk to life there, because actually if an ambulance couldn't get to a heart attack, that is a genuine risk of life, and this is something which affects rural areas much more significantly than urban areas, and why I thought it was very important to raise this as part of this excellent debate.
The incident in Lichfield, I won't go into details because I suspect there may be a criminal case coming from it, I hope, but I think my honourable friend described it as, and it wasn't just fly tipping, a serious example of industrialised rural crime. And the grief that has caused to local residents and local businesses should absolutely be put on record. And I have my absolute sympathy with him and his constituents.